All right, so today's mini lesson is on transitions. And transitions are something that we've talked about in tutorials on a case-by-case basis, but it's a bit of a Comp 1 concept that's introduced earlier in your writing career, but it's still important, and it is one of the things on the scoring guide that can really help bump your grade up. So I want to talk about it. In addition, of course, to the grade bump, the purpose of a good graceful quality transition is it adds to your essay sense of organization because it's clear why points come next, right? And why you have them laid out in the way that they do when you have good transitions. It creates a sense of coherence, and coherence meaning things are logically linked together. It creates a sense of flow, which is sort of ease of reading throughout the essay. And of course, it adds to the logical argument behind your essay because ideas build upon each other to create a logical argument that's linked together well. So, your job with a transition is to create a logical link between ideas and to explain the relationships between ideas. So, for example, if you have in your paper 3 main negative effects, right? It shouldn't just be a list of 3 main negative effects. They should be linked to each other. So why did you choose to put the first one first? And how does that first one lead to? Or what does the first effect have to do with the second effect? Is one worse? Is one caused by the first effect? Right? So that relationship between ideas is what's going to make your paper really coherent, unified, and read with a sense of flow so that readers can follow you from idea to idea. So to do that, to create a graceful transition that has a logical link, explains the relationship between ideas, you need to include 2 types of things. So one is a transitional expression. Furthermore, similarly, certainly, in other words, on the other hand, right, any of these are transitional expressions. However, transitional expressions by themselves are a sort of basic or really elementary way to transition. So for example, if you have 3 main effects in your paper, you could say the first main effect is, the second main effect is. But that type of transition doesn't actually explain why it's coming second. It just says, this is the second one I'm talking about. So it doesn't really express a logical connection or a relationship between ideas. So in addition to the transitional expression, you also want to repeat some keywords and phrases in a way that explains how they're connected. So for example, this first sentence, foreigners look to America as a land of freedom. Freedom, however, is not something all Americans enjoy. So we've got the however, that's a transitional expression, but then this freedom refers back to the previous idea. This is a pretty simplified example, but I'll show you some examples where this type of logical link, relationship, transition is working really well. So here are, getting a little more complex on the examples, and then we'll look at some examples situated within actual papers. So if this is a key idea of one paragraph, overall Management Systems International has logged increased sales in every sector, leading to a significant rise in third quarter profits. And then the next paragraph, this is my main topic sentence. The corporation had expanded its international influence. It's hard to follow how those 2 are connected. Is it because? Did that happen beforehand? So what exactly is the link between these 2 key ideas? So this one does it better. Leading to a significant rise in third quarter profits. And then the next paragraph could begin with, these impressive profits are largely due to the corporation's expanded international influence. So these is actually a pronoun that refers back to these profits. And then we're even using the key main idea keyword profits again here. This is repetition, but it's repetition that refers back to something purposefully. Bad repetition in a paper is just saying the same thing, right? But this is using that key word to build upon it, to make this next main idea make sense. Okay. So here's another example. Amy Tan became a famous author after her novel The Joy Luck Club skyrocketed up the bestseller list. Maybe my next paragraph would say, there are other things to note about Tan as well. So we do have a transitional phrase here as well, right? And other. that tells me I'm going to say something else about her, but it doesn't create a very good link between these things about her and this one. This one is better. You can see in bold here is the key idea. And then this phrase, though her fiction is well known, her work with the satirical garage band receives far less publicity. So this is saying people know this, people don't know this, right? And we've got fiction that refers back to being an author of a novel, right? So the key word in this topic sentence, in this transition, even though it's not the exact same word used here, it still refers back to that word. Okay, so I've got a couple resources for you on this mini lesson. The first one is a really good tool guide, tip guide from another university's writing center. So it's got some extra explanation of these concepts and why they're important. So sort of, it sort of reads like a very easy to read textbook because it's sort of telling you the information. But then here in the bottom as well, it's got some transitional expressions. So if the next paragraph provides an example, if the next paragraph emphasizes something, if the next paragraph is an effect of something, or if you're going to your conclusion, or if you're providing additional support or evidence, right? So whatever the next paragraph is doing, you can choose one of these keywords. Of course, keeping in mind that the keyword by itself is not enough because you also want, the transitional phrase by itself is not enough because you also want to make a logical link. The second resource here is a different writing center's example of a problem solution essay. So this is for a different type of prompt, but it does use some really nice transitions in it. So I'll point a few of those out to you and this idea of referring back to the previous idea. Excuse me. So here we go. Here in the paper, I'm actually going to go down to one of these paragraphs. So this paragraph here is about physical pain that animals feel when they are tested upon. So this paper is about animal testing, right? So if you read the last couple sentences, pain and suffering are unique. Animals have a pain threshold, but pain is experienced in a similar way that it is to humans. So we've got the idea of physical pain as the main idea of this paragraph. This next paragraph begins by referring back to that. Physical pain is unfortunately not the only problem that these animals undergo. Psychological distress, fear, and sadness also occur, right? So the first sentence refers back to the previous one and then says, that's not all. Physical pain isn't all. There's also this other type of problem. Now, this next paragraph, besides the obvious reasons of the pain and suffering that these animals feel. So this is saying those are ideas that you may have already thought of, but this is getting even more complex. And it's also using the key terms from the previous sentences. So creates a logical link and uses those phrases that tell us here's what's coming next. Finally, I'll post for you. I posted the Yemeni Civil War paper as an example for other things. So this is just the last two paragraphs of the paper. Again, just focusing on that repetition of key terms. So this is the solution section of the paper, and this paragraph is really about aid that we can provide, including donations and volunteering. So to wrap up this paragraph, to help, organizations require more volunteers and donations. And then the next paragraph says, in addition to volunteerism, we also need to do this, advocate against the U.S. influence. So we've got in addition to, a transitional phrase, and then we've got the key term that just wrapped up this paragraph. That's the main idea of this paragraph, to create that really smooth, logical link. This will help your readers follow where you're going and how things are connected. And it's also going to increase the logical appeal and the logic of your argument itself, because it's clear that each idea is building upon each other towards the conclusion, which is here's what we need to do and here's why it's important. So I hope this is helpful. I'll post all of these examples will be posted with it, including these resources. And now it's time for you to go to the paper that you're working on, look at your transitions and decide whether they're working or whether they can be made more graceful, and keep it in mind if you're continuing to write and as you continue to revise. And good luck!